North Korea even announced that if any Chinese person crosses the border, North
How is the world reacting to it? Why are our world seems to be changing every day. So what's happening with the coronavirus now? How is the world reacting to it? Why are some countries more affected by this epidemic than others, like Iran and Italy? Is it because they could have hidden ties to the CCP or Chinese Communist Party? What about celebrities and public figures? Which ones are at the most risk? Are any even being quarantined? And what is the Chinese Communist Party saying about the virus now? Did you know that they even released guidelines for US-related propaganda during this pandemic? Find out about all this and more only from The Edge. Edge of Wonder.
I can't read the teleprompter. Why are you so frickin' far away?
You know, social distance is probably as good around this time.
More like social awkwardness.
We should just like Photoshop something right here in between us, like Alf.
A gigantic, life-size Alf. That would be perfect. Let's move this crap closer.
Okay.
So yeah, things are starting to get a little bit dismal out there. So I ended up wearing my favorite shirt today. Figured, you know,
kick the coronavirus.
Kicking them in the cabals is always something that lifts my spirits.
That's so true.
But anyway, welcome to another episode of Edge of Wonder on the coronavirus. I'm your host, Rob.
And I'm Ben. So since our last episodes, things have massively changed, as if you guys don't already know that. We are trying to get this info out as fast as possible, so this episode may not be as smooth as it normally is.
Come on, man. You know us. It's gonna be smooth. You're the epitome of smooth, man.
Smooth criminal.
Yeah. So in our recent videos and live streams, we've been talking a lot about what we're finding out recently, and we have a lot of updates.
But now the recent update is that you can't be in groups of more than 10 or more. Also,
but Ben, you are like 10 people at once.
Maybe. Also, New York corrupt Mayor de Blasio and crime boss Cuomo, however, are actually competing. Well, Cuomo's working with Trump, and de Blasio, they're saying totally two different things now, so I don't know what the heck to say.
So literally 20 minutes ago, I was watching de Blasio's press conference, and I could not endure it.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, he's corrupt. He's bad.
Like every instance he possibly could, he was saying something bad about Trump, but it was like, dude, did you watch any of the press conferences?
It's like all his talk is like hating Trump, and it's like, can you just talk about the coronavirus? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you spending a half hour talking about Trump? Like, no one cares. Just talk about the coronavirus.
Anyway,
it's so messed up. And by the way, I heard his Spanish is horrible.
Well,
from actual people who speak Spanish.
Well, okay, that doesn't mean much. My Spanish is pretty horrible.
At least he's trying, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway,
de Blasio, if you didn't know, wants to shut down the city, and Cuomo does not. But these two are basically always at odds with one another over control over Manhattan.
Seriously.
Okay, and if you guys didn't know, the US is shutting down its borders with Canada, aside from things like medical supplies and that kind of a thing. And Australia is about to go into lockdown mode as well.
Yeah, by the time this episode actually comes out, there could be more updates or recent updates on the situation related to New York. So we'll move on for now, but many of you are wondering what the heck is really going on.
Hey, so are we. That's what we're here for. Yeah, and we have a massive amount of celebrities getting the virus, reportedly, more and more every day, and people across the world are getting it. People are starting to get worried, along with absolutely no apologies from China, and instead, they've blamed the US, blamed us.
Yeah, so these are questions we're going to try to answer in the following episodes, especially this one. So when we first started the series, we mostly kept the focus on China and what is happening there. This one's going to be focusing more on the world issue and what is really going on.
We also established the World Health Organization was pretty much doing damage control instead, and protecting more of the CCP's interests rather than the world's people. Their ties with the Chinese Communist Party run very deep.
We have also covered all of this in our previous episodes, but soon we'll do a massive deep dive on the history of the World Health Organization and their connection with the CCP throughout all the years. But who else has strong ties with China? And is this virus related to that?
Did you guys know that most pharmaceutical companies moved their manufacturing to China? Not only that, but the FDA only inspects a small percentage of this, and some of them were found to be in serious violation.
Penicillin, heparin, and medications essential for surgeries and many crucial medical drugs are all made out of China. However, in the 90s, the US, Japan, and Europe pretty much made nearly everything.
So why was this changed? Well, you can thank old Bill Clinton, who paved the way for this to happen. He created the US-China Relations Act, in which the US incurred a trade deficit with China totaling about $124 billion. And that is just what we know.
Yeah, and we are actually over $5 trillion in debt to China overall, so thanks, Bill Clinton. But coming back to this, the FDA couldn't keep up with the oversight of all of this, and soon toxic medicines started to pour in from China, who, by the way, raised the market rate more than 600%. So how can we trust that the drugs we are receiving are helping us more than they are hurting us?
This is all from a book titled China RX, Exposing the Risks of America's Dependence on China for Medicine by Rosemary Gibson and Janardhan Prasad Singh. Why'd you give me that name? Just kidding.
Sorry.
Did
a good job with it.
They write that in 2008, the FDA held a press conference on how heparin, which was made in China and sold through Illinois-based Baxter Healthcare Corp., was contaminated. It killed 4 people and injured 350.
Yeah, also, if you guys remember back around 2007, a Chinese factory had contaminated dog food, which killed a lot of family dogs in the US, and toxic baby formula, which killed 6 babies and caused 300,000 to become seriously ill.
So, as sad as all of that is, you guys might be wondering why we're bringing this up. Well, it's to show you that not much has changed. We still get most of our supplies, medicine, some food, and everything else in China.
This is the real reason why big businesses are hurting, but most of you already know this. But what other kinds of businesses have been working so close to the CCP, and not just working, but may have even sold out their own country for financial gain?
This is what we're now going to get into. But first, to date, Wuhan has the largest number of cases, which makes sense, but a lot of things aren't adding up.
Such as, why did Italy and Iran get struck worse than other Asian countries such as Hong Kong and Taiwan? Most people would think they would have it worse over there compared to Italy and Iran, since it seems a lot of mainland Chinese people left and went to Hong Kong and Taiwan.
As for Hong Kong, most Hong Kong folks despise the CCP along with Taiwan, and Taiwan was even faster in shutting off its borders with China than the US. They immediately stopped all flights. The Hong Kong people don't like mainlanders and stay away from them, actually.
As for Italy, even though there's a lot of officials in Italy that support America and what Trump is doing, there's also a lot of officials and people in Italy that do not. And recently, they signed a deal with China for their new Belt and Road Initiative, also called One Belt, One Road.
And of course, as we all know, it's the deep state's religious headquarters with the Vatican. But there's an article from the Taipei Times which even suggested that this outbreak is definitely connected to China. In this article, they state that Beijing wanted to use the New Belt, New Road to gain access to the rest of Europe, and that Xi Jinping went to Rome to sign the agreement. Along with it came the installation of Huawei's 5G towers, which were, not surprisingly, installed where the virus is now the worst.
Yeah, as for South Korea, they always had a good relationship with the CCP for a long time, and have close economic ties with them as well. Even though most citizens despise the CCP, the government has bent over backwards to the Chinese regime for economic gain.
As for Iran, since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, Iran's relations with the West have deteriorated even more and become closer to the CCP. They also became an important partner of the One Belt, One Road.
Not only did Iran welcome the CCP with open arms, they even allowed them to install 5G towers from Huawei as well. Eventually, the vice chairman of Huawei, Ming Wanzhou, was arrested in Canada.
As for Germany, we already know Merkel is someone we would never trust, and for the last 4 years, Germany was pretty much China's most important trading partner. Just last year alone, the total trade volume between China and Germany reached over 200 billion euros.
Yeah. The most ironic part is that Russia, being a former communist country who has deep ties to China, wasn't that affected by the virus. But why? It seems because they know China best and don't trust them at all, even though they've worked together for a very long time.
These two know more secrets about each other than probably any other country, so they sealed their border the moment news came out that China had a virus.
And North Korea even announced that if any Chinese person crosses the border, the North Koreans are allowed to shoot on sight, which is really horrible. But this stopped the virus from spreading in North Korea. However, I wouldn't recommend that option.
However, it is weird to say that France's partnership with the CCP is nearly the worst. They also have a long-term relationship with the CCP. We also mentioned in our last video that Xu Hongbin, who was the dean of the Wuhan University, studied under Gary J. Nabel, who is the senior vice president at the French pharmaceutical company Sanofi.
The French even helped the CCP build the P4 laboratory of the Wuhan Virus Research Institute, and we found evidence that they even helped create the coronavirus, which started all the way back in 2003 during the SARS outbreak.
On top of that, the French welcomed Huawei to their 5G networks. And like we mentioned before, the French consulate in Wuhan is just down the street from the Wuhan Virology Institute.
Yes, so the moral of the story is if you work with the CCP, you will have blood on your hands.
And probably the coronavirus. Of course, it's different if a small company wants to do business, but if they know about the horrors taking place in China, like organ harvesting, persecutions, and the killings of millions of people while turning a blind eye to it, they're gonna have to know that they have to answer for it at some point.
Yep. Also, as of to date, 10,000 confirmed cases are in the US, which has already passed the CCP's official count for China. So, already we know that they lied, right?
Come on.
I mean, with our research, our gathering of all these different articles and reading other sources and hearing info directly from people inside China, we actually suspect it could be as high as 1 million.
At least.
Yeah.
We know that sounds very high, but many people died at the beginning, which wasn't being counted in the official tally and were being written off as dying from something else. Also, if you trust the CCP's official numbers, you have some serious looking inside to do. What is wrong with you? Seriously,
Yeah.
Why would we trust them?
Definitely not.
Come on. The virus. Okay, so let's get back to the virus. What kind of virus is this? We already established that this is a 100% bioweapon that came directly out of Wuhan. Even the CCP admitted to it on the PLA's official website along with Xi Jinping.
Right now, people are really freaking out because Trump called the coronavirus the China virus, and all of these people were up in arms calling him a racist when in fact it really did come out of China. Of course, this is just propaganda by the Chinese Communist Party and the Trump haters.
This part is important. We also know that Trump was referring to the CCP and not the Chinese people as a whole. Even the Chinese people know this, and trust us, we have a few on our Edge of Wonder team. But remember, this virus was called the Wuhan virus, and then it changed to the coronavirus.
Because of the backlash, we think that the virus shouldn't be called the China virus or the coronavirus, but should be called the CCP virus, since the Chinese Communist Party are the ones who created it. They are killing their own people and couldn't even care less. Actually, the Epoch Times are starting to call this by this name too, so the CCP virus.
Right, because calling it the novel coronavirus, which is one official term they use for it, actually makes you sound like a book you'd read on the subject. Also, by calling it the coronavirus, they focused on the victim instead of the creator. So going forward, we are going to call it the CCP virus, since we know 100% that this virus came from the Chinese Communist Party with the intent to harm the world.
Yes. We don't know if they released it on purpose or not, but they created it with the intent to do harm either way. President Trump also knows this, and it seems China wasn't acting alone in this either. Such as, why in January did Bill Gates donate so much money to Xi Jinping when all of this was going on?
Also, we mentioned his TED Talk, where many people were thinking that he was talking about how many millions would die. But when you actually listen to the paragraph before he says that, he's talking about lowering pollution. But was he? He did choose his words very carefully, which they often do.
Yeah, very carefully in that thing. It's very ambiguous.
So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero, and that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Well, what is weird is that in October of 2019, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hosted an event called Event 201, which was a high-level pandemic exercise in New York City. There's even a website for it which states, quote, "The exercise illustrated areas where public-private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences."
Whatever that means. So why is it just a coincidence that Bill Gates held a pandemic exercise just a few months before the the CCP virus started to spread? But here is where the strangest gets even more weird. We are now hearing from people within Wuhan that this virus first started to spread in September of 2019, that early.
Yeah, that means that they waited even longer to tell the people and knew that millions of people left Wuhan with the virus. But we'll get back to this part later in this episode. But as you all know, Tom Hanks got the virus, and on his Twitter account, he posted some strange images. By the way, remember Event 201.
For one, he posted an image of a typewriter and it was called Corona. Madonna did this recently too. And if that isn't strange enough in itself, in the same post he says that he's playing gin rummy with his wife Rita, who leads by 201 points.
Okay, is this just some strange coincidence here that they're using 201, or could it go even deeper?
A Twitter account by the name of Hulk Smash Tweets, great account, posted this, quote, "I'm a 10-year Navy veteran with experience in aviation electronics as well as CDI collateral duty inspector for quality assurance. I used to have to turn in calibration equipment, and as a shop supervisor, I took pets in many internal audits. That barcode is from a government building, more than likely a military facility. These barcodes are in each room and designate what government property is located in each room, like a desk and chair. Even a lamp or a large fake plant can have one of these barcodes. I've seen thousands of these, and this is one," unquote.
So he is referencing the barcode on top of the door above Tom's head. But when we took a closer look again at Tom's post, the one with the typewriter, things kind of really started standing out to us. For one, that sink is not a normal sink. Those are the kind of sinks either in a hospital or some kind of compound.
Or a prison cell? As for the other image Tom posted, some people think it's Photoshop because of the glass of water on top of the plate without the water in the glass tilting. We honestly don't know, but why does it seem like bars are reflected on the table? Also, who puts that much Vegemite on bread? I mean, seriously, no American would do that.
Well, maybe American. I mean, I wouldn't honestly.
Have you tried to eat that much Vegemite?
It's rough.
It's
yeah,
hard.
I know. I tried to do it one time, and someone was like, "Oh no, you just put a tiny bit."
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, no wonder it tastes like
massive
crap."
heaps of butter.
But anyway, aside from Tom, another post which Rob mentioned is Madonna, who recently uploaded a video of herself on a typewriter typing out "Madam X did not die in Paris." Again, is this a cryptic message or something else? It's kind of hard to say.
Dude, she's also said something about murdering pasta.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
right.
like pasta is like a code term for like a child or something. I mean, what the heck? Also, if you
didn't
look
think
at
about
that
that.
post, it's like she made a typo and it says Kadam X cake.
It's hard to tell if
Yeah.
it's an M or a K.
I looked real close. It looked like a K, and
Which
I
is
looked it up.
It's
and
in India, right?
yeah, so there's a place called Kadam, and then also Kadam in some. I looked it up, and one of the definitions is little girl.
That's weird.
Yeah, and it's totally weird.
That's really weird.
Anyway,
I didn't
moving
know
on.
that. We can go more into that into another episode for sure.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this episode.
Yes, and of course, Rob and I really want to thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts for supporting us here on edgeofwonder.tv.
Without y'all, we wouldn't be sitting here, seriously.
We're so grateful for our awesome subscribers and are working super hard to bring you even more content to watch right here.
So tune in every Thursday to check out our exclusive episodes just for you and only here on .tv.